Welcome to Define Scope, part of a lecture series on project management. My name is Michael Erskine. In this short lecture, I will discuss the work breakdown structure as a mechanism to define scope. So, you may be wondering, what exactly is a work breakdown structure, commonly referred to as a WBS? Well, the project management body of knowledge describes a WBS as a deliverable-oriented hierarchical decomposition of the work to be executed by the project team to accomplish the project objectives and create the required deliverables. It organizes and defines the total scope of the project. It's important to note here that the focus is deliverable-oriented as well as presented as a hierarchical decomposition. Essentially, a WBS is a hierarchical breakdown of the tasks that need to be accomplished to deliver the project. In its entirety, the WBS should capture the total scope of the project. Again, the work breakdown structure includes all the tasks that must be done to complete a project deliverable. In the WBS, the tasks are arranged in hierarchical order, starting with broader categories of work down to very specific work tasks and their activities. The WBS is unique in that it also visually illustrates the project scope. Another key aspect when deciding on how to develop a WBS is whether the subcomponents are described as activities, which will be identified using verbs such as install databases, or if the subcomponents are described using deliverables, which are identified using nouns such as database. Either method is acceptable. However, the two methods should not be mixed in a single WBS. Developing a WBS is important as it lays out the scope of the project work. This ensures that all project tasks are accounted for when developing the scope. The WBS also provides the foundation for all project estimates. Using the WBS, the project manager and team can develop time, cost, and resource estimates. Finally, the WBS also helps when working with the project organizational structure. By seeing how individual tasks relate to one another and identifying the associated authority structure and highlighting any dependencies, the project manager can better ensure staffing requirements are met. There's no need to start work on the WBS until after the project charter has been created and signed. The project charter is needed as it identifies all the deliverables and the major steps required to complete the project. Developing a WBS is simplified when the project manager or the project team have experience with similar past projects or access to a WBS from a similar project. Finally, before developing the WBS, it is also wise to have access to organizational process assets, such as guidelines, policies, and procedures. Such assets will constrain how the WBS is designed. To develop the WBS, there are certain techniques that should be used. First, the decomposition effort. Decomposition, of course, referring to breaking apart the project. The team should include members of the project team, customers, and subject matter experts. It is important for the decomposition group to identify all relevant tasks for effective planning. Next, all major project deliverables should be clearly identified, as this will help the WBS design and creation effort. Another technique is to use assigning numeric codes to each component and different codes being used at different levels of the hierarchy. So, for example, the highest level or the project itself would be coded as level 0, while major deliverables may be coded as level 1, and individual components of the deliverables may be coded as level 2. This coding scheme can continue. However, it should not exceed 4 levels before reaching the final level, known as the work package level. This diagram shows the numbering scheme that may be used in a WBS. When conducting the decomposition approach, there are some steps that can help simplify the process. First, the team should list all major jobs needed to achieve the deliverable, then break down these into smaller jobs, then into component tasks. This decomposition should continue until all the necessary detail emerges to properly estimate resource needs, time, cost, and risk. A question I get asked often is how small a work package should be. A work package being the lowest level of the WBS. The general rule of thumb is that a work package should contain work that requires only 1 or 2 employees for 1 or 2 weeks to complete. Another way to look at this is to consider a work package within an 80-hour completion time. WBS work packages should never be longer than a project reporting period. For large projects, such as the ones led by the US government, the work package rule of thumb is to aim for a cost of around $100,000. Additional guidelines for work packages include that all the work package activities can be completed by an individual or a small team of no more than 1 or 2 people. Also, work packages should be similar in size and effort. In other words, your project should not have one work package that takes 5 months and another work package that only takes 1 week. And most important is that the work package includes enough detail to allow for scheduling and budget development. In this example, we see a WBS product breakdown for a Windsor chair. In this case, the work packages are presented as nouns and the activities as verbs. For instance, the seat work package includes flattening planks and drilling the seat. As you know, a project manager is likely leading this effort with support tasks such as procuring the lumber and HR. In this example, these important support tasks are missing. Let's talk about core and support tasks. Core tasks are tasks needed to produce client deliverables. Support tasks are all the tasks needed to support the project work. Such tasks can include project planning and project administration. It's important to note that on many projects, especially smaller projects, support tasks are often overlooked while planning. However, these tasks will require attention as they take both time and money to complete. Therefore, it is best to include them early in project planning. As I mentioned earlier, activities are a part of work packages. Therefore, the work packages should include all activities required to produce the deliverables. Each activity should be defined, list resource requirements, and predecessor or successor activities. Those are activities that have to come before or after the activity. You may be wondering how much activity detail is required. Here are some rules of thumb. Determine if the activity can be completed by one person or a small, well-defined group. Does the activity have a known method or technique? Does the activity have well-defined predecessor and successor steps? Is the activity measurable so that the level of completion can be determined? And does the activity have a short duration, as in a few hours or a few days in length? If you are meeting these questions, you would probably have achieved sufficient activity detail. When defining activities, there are a few steps to help simplify the process. First, start with templates and activity documentation from prior projects. Instead of a top-down or bottom-up approach, try a rolling wave approach. The activity output should include an activity list with activity attributes, and these attributes should list the activity description, assumptions and constraints, leads and lags, logical relationships, as well as predecessor and successor activities. Activity output should also include the major milestones and any requested changes to the project scope statement. There are three primary decomposition approaches, the first one being top-down and very traditional. This is where the project lead and project manager begin with defining the deliverables and working down to the work packages. Another method is the bottom-up approach. This approach is used for very unique projects that require the people who are closest to doing the work to provide the estimates. In this diagram, you can see a graphic showing a hypothetical space elevator, which is essentially a long cable attached to an object in a geostationary orbit around Earth. The theory is that instead of using rockets, an elevator attached to a long cable can transport cargo to space. While interesting and exciting, there are no materials that could support the forces at work to build such a space elevator. However, if I were to be tasked to complete such a project, I would certainly utilize the bottom-up approach, where experienced materials engineers could provide the guidance of what will be required to complete such a project. Finally, a rolling wave approach generally tends to begin as a top-down approach with feedback from the bottom up, and possibly another iteration of top-down and bottom-up decomposition activities. This will help reveal detail and define detail over time. A project manager rarely begins a WBS from scratch. There are many templates available in a variety of formats, and popular project tools such as Visio and Microsoft Project can be used to develop a WBS. However, if you are starting one from scratch, I would recommend using sticky notes. In addition to the WBS facilitates the creation of a WBS dictionary. The dictionary should list descriptions of each component, who is responsible for the development, include a statement of work, important milestones, as well as help estimate costs and required resources. After completing the WBS, it is important for the project manager to update the project scope statement and scope management plan, as these will likely have changed due to the WBS effort. Here's an example of a WBS based on system development lifecycle activities. Note that each box represents key system development activities. In addition, on the far right, there are ongoing project activities. Here, we are looking at the same system development lifecycle. However, this example focuses on deliverables, not activities. Note that each box represents key system deliverables. In addition, there are ongoing project deliverables in the far right column. Finally, here's a WBS for a web application development project. Note that the activities are shown throughout. This may be a useful guide for your own WBS development efforts. Thank you for watching the Define Scope lecture. I hope you found the information to be informative.